don't think myself is Jewish. I don't have such concrete factor.
Then the government decided to suppress.
The Attorney General, Mr. Anil Nandalal, acting ostensibly on behalf of the state of Guyana, has brought an action in the courts challenging the decision by the Committee of Appointments to reduce the composition of parliamentary committees from 10 to 9. The explanation given by the opposition in bringing that approach was to avoid any bottlenecks, to avoid any bills or any decisions being held hostage by what is called a tie. The opposition has argued that this approach by the government is improper, it's a misuse of the role and function of the Auditor General chambers, whilst the Auditor General is saying that quite the opposite. The suggestion has also been made that Parliament should hold on this decision to reduce the committee from 10 to 9, pending the resolution by the court, headed by Chief Justice Ian Chang acting. One must be conscious of the sub judice implications of an extensive out-of-court discussion on the matter. However, it is clear from what was said publicly in the courts that the move by the PPP is consistent with an embrace of party supremacy. One PPP supporter even said that his party is now feeling how it is to have the shoe on the other foot, describing the decision as a dictatorship of one. The PPP and the government and Mr. Anil Nandalal must, however, remember that the PPP has the presidency and it has the executive. It has influence over as well the courts. So to suggest that control of Parliament and its committees by the opposition is a dictatorship of one is pure politicking. AFC presidential candidate Mr. Kemraj Ramjatan said the AFC, which one day before had facilitated the passage of Supplementary Appropriation Bill number 4 of 2011, said that the AFC would have none of the PPP's maneuvers and that it was proceeding with the wishes of the people, that the legislature be in the control of the opposition. Meanwhile, Dr. Ashni Singh, Minister of Finance, got away with his improper spending bill without even a caution by the National Assembly. He is a lucky person indeed. Welcome to Plain Talk.
I let it fall, my heart, and as it fell, you rose to claim it. It was dark, and I was over, until you kissed my lips, and you saved me. My hands still strong, but my knees were...
Now you can get all the latest products you want, electronics, fashion, furniture, from anywhere in the world with internet shopping at Aeropost through World Mall Guyana. You'll need to register with Aeropost and have a credit or debit card account. If you don't have one, come into our office and use ours for just 10% of the product cost. Call 223-3061. Select your products. Pay for them via credit card. We'll ship to Guyana and handle customs brokerage. We can also deliver if you so desire, or you can come into our office and collect. www.aeropost.com. Aeropost. Enjoy the thrill of internet shopping.
Our guest in Plain Talk this evening is Mr. Raymond Gaskin, who obviously has been no stranger to the program. No introductions are necessary. Mr. Gaskin, tell me about your appointment to head an implementation committee at the City Council. I think that appointment was made by the government.
Yeah, well, as you know, Burroughs headed an inquiry into the Affairs of City Council and made its recommendations since 2010. Quite a number of recommendations, and it appears as if not much has happened with those recommendations. And Burrows himself was made chairman of the implementation committee to see that these recommendations are carried out. So now he has put me and some other people on this committee. The three of us are now on his committee.
So you are executive in the
No.
Let me ask.
I'm just an ordinary member.
No. But you're an order. You're carrying out the recommendations. So you're executing.
No. I'm not carrying out the recommendations. I am making an assessment of how much has been done and what has not been done and why, and to see how best we can help the council do these recommendations. That's what I'm carrying.
So it's nothing to do with implementing the recommendations.
It's to assess. It's an assessment of what has been done so far since 2010.
Who are the other three members?
Who are
the two persons?
I don't know all the people there. I don't know them. I never met them before.
So you've accepted this position without you?
I'm a member. I'm an ordinary member of the committee. Burrows is the chairman of the committee.
What role does the city council have in this decision?
Well, the implementation committee is really to assess, essentially, after 2 years, how much has been done, and see what can be done now to push this process forward. That's what we try.
No, but my question is, what role has the city council had in the decision to get this committee moving, to get persons now doing some, as you said, to do the assessment?
This is not. This committee was set up long ago to implement the recommendations.
No, but your appointment was only announced this week.
No, it's not an appointment to Burrows committee to be a member of the committee. Burrows is the chairman. The committee is in place, and I'm a new member, and some other people. I understand, 2 other people.
And that committee is appointed by whom? It was a one-man committee.
No.
Mr. Burrows was appointed as a one-man committee.
Carry out the inquiry.
Yes.
After that was done, the implementation committee was established.
So this is a new committee.
Yeah. This implementation committee deals with implementation of the borough's recommendations. This is a separate thing. This is a new thing. It's been around for a long time.
Well, the decision to appoint this is not the city council's.
No.
But the Minister of Local Government.
Burrows is the person who recommends that people to go in this committee to assess and to assist.
You yourself have had some difficulties, if not reservation, about a central government minister.
Oh yes.
So how do you reconcile this apparent contradiction?
In my submission to the Constitutional Reform Committee, I had written about the dichotomy of having a central government minister run local government affairs. However, the way the Act is written, 2801, Municipal and District Councils Act, the way the Act is written, a lot of power is given to the minister.
So you don't mind, you don't have any reservations then about acting within that framework that you find so fundamentally flawed?
The whole problem of, and I was explaining to them when I met them, and
who is this them?
I met with the members of the committee, I met with Burrows, I met with Mayor Hamilton Green, I met with the town clerk and so on.
They're not members of the committee?
No. And I told them that in a country like, say, Canada, where I lived for many years, you never find the central government involved in the municipality of Toronto or Brampton or Mississauga or Scarborough.
But my question is whether you don't find it...
No, I haven't changed my position, if that's what you're trying to get at. I have not changed my position.
But you accept there's a contradiction?
I accept nothing.
You don't accept there's a contradiction?
It is a contradiction.
Well, so
that
you do accept
the central government in this country, the central government, the way the law is written, and I complained about that in 1996 to the Constitutional Reform Commission. 16 years ago, I complained about it. That is dichotomous. For me, it's unusual. But the way the laws here are written, That's how it is. Unless and until the laws are changed and amended, that's what you have. My position remains the same, that it is it's dichotomy for the central government to be so deeply involved in local government affairs. But that is how the law is written. The duty of the people who make law and change law here to deal with that. But that's how it's written.
Okay, your point is taken, that you still hold one position in terms of a policy, but you're prepared, even in contradiction, to work along with that policy.
I'm working with no policy. I'm prepared to help Burroughs get his recommendations implemented. That's what I'm prepared to do. What I'm involved in has nothing to do with a policy issue. Burroughs did his inquiry. He made certain recommendations since 2010. They have not been carried out.
Okay.
We're trying to see how they can be carried out. That's not with policy.
Disappointment, how long does it last?
I think it's a 3-month thing. 2 months. If I could wrap up my thing in 30 days, I'll be out of there.
Well, it's not. You keep saying if I, but you're saying on one breath it's a committee.
It's a committee, but I have certain things that I have to assess and look at.
Let's move on.
The same committee's been working for a long time. They haven't achieved anything much. Go ahead.
Let's move on. You heard last week, this is the week just past, apparently Mr. Vincent Brassington made a presentation to representatives of the parliamentary political parties on the Myla Falls.
I'm not aware of it.
It was reported in the press.
I don't read Kaichor.
It was reported in the Starbuck News as well. Let me tell you essentially, Mr. Gaskin, what it said is that look, I think Mr. Gerard Ramsarup, AFC finance person, was quoted in the press as saying, look, they've received a presentation from Mr. Brassington. He was very open. He answered all the questions. He provided them with information. And he seemed satisfied. Whether he was speaking for the entire parliamentary opposition, one is not quite sure. Do you think the political parties have paid enough attention to all the arguments for and against Myla as it is presently constructed?
Well, I think that the opposition parties have raised this subject of Myla, and there was some meeting where they were addressed by some government people. And Ramsarup, after the meeting, I think he was quoted in the press as having said that he
so you have read it?
No, I don't know about Brassington. I don't know about Brassington. That he got the answers he got and so on that he requested. The problem is, as far as the AFC is concerned, one of the AFC's members of parliament does work for the people behind Myla, the Site Global people.
In fact, she's the chief. She's the whip for the AFC.
She's the whip for the AFC, and she appears to be the spokesperson for Site and a PR person. So I do not expect that AFC will come aboard on opposing the Myla at all. I don't think you can go to them for support on this matter. So I'm not surprised that the AFC would want to support Myla, because their people are working for Myla. They're Myla promoters. But some weeks ago there was a response in the press to a letter I had written, and the Site Global people replied and gave some additional information about Myla, which I didn't have, the cost. I had calculated it will cost about 1.9 billion, with about $1 billion US in interest on this thing, and they replied and said I was around in the ballpark. But they gave some additional information. They said it would cost about, GPL would have to pay them, assuming this thing goes through, 114 million US
for the first
in year one, with an annual escalator of about 1.75% for the first 12 years, and then 71 million US from year 13 with an escalator of 1.75% to year 20. And when you add up all of this thing and calculate it, it comes up to 2.107 billion US, which is more than I had calculated it before. So it's useful in the sense that what they replied to me, it's costing even more now, 2.1 billion US. I'm convinced in my mind that it's not a good deal. It will bankrupt the GPL. It might even bankrupt Guyana. It is more than the total domestic and external debt of this country put together. It is even more now, the 114 million US that GPL will have to pay these people is more than the fuel bill, which is running at about 95 million US now, the last available number I saw. And GPL will have to find about 20 million US more in straight cash to pay these people. I think recently Prime Minister indicated that there is going to be some sharp increase.
About a 19%.
90% increase in electricity rates. So therefore, I'm more than ever convinced that this is not a good deal for Guyana. It ought to be carefully reviewed by professional people. I think the President has an obligation to have it reviewed, and the members of the National Assembly too.
Well,
I think so, because the numbers that we've been hearing all along was 840.
Yeah.
They said it was 840. Well, now we know it's 2.1 billion US.
But clearly, the President has not signaled any dramatic shift on that issue. And now that the opposition, AFC, is saying or indicating that it may have no problems, it means this project is going through.
I don't know.
Well, if Parliament, if the AFC even abstains, the PPP will get a majority. That's the reality.
Well, I don't know. But, the President, I think he's still supportive of the deal in principle. Most people support hydropower in this country. I'm not sure if he's aware of the financial implications of the deal, or if the promoters of the deal have brought him up to date on the total implication, the cost of this thing, I'm not sure.
There are many people, and you have been one of the leading persons in this, who have brought that kind of information to the fore. And there is generally a sort of indifference to whether or not it is taken on board. And possibly we wouldn't bother about it until it actually happens, like with the Skeldon project.
Oh, like Greece, not like Skeldon, like Greece. If anybody's been watching the BBC, they'll see what's happening in Greece. A lot of things happened in Greece. Everybody ignored it until the time came, and the country was facing bankruptcy, I think, in 14 days, and scrambling around for money. We'll be facing not a Skeldon situation, with a 200 million plan that is not
10 times worse.
We'll be facing a situation like Greece, which is an entire country is facing a financial difficulty that it cannot deal with. I would like to compare it to the potential problem that we would have with a 2 billion exposure. I would like to compare it to Greece, not Skeldon.
Give me your own strong position on this matter. What do you plan doing now?
I could tell you right now, I plan to seek an audience with the President to explain to him in simple language what this thing is all about. I really do believe that it hasn't been explained to him properly. I know in government people lie all the time. I don't know if they're lying to the President. But I think that any reasonable person seized with the correct facts on a mile would not support it. Would not support it.
Are you surprised that the parliamentary opposition has not asked independent professionals for their views and comments on this?
Well, the parliamentary opposition, the AFC and the AFC people, they're working for a mile, so I don't expect them to be very critical of it. That's one. As for the APNU, I'm not sure where they're at on this. I'm not sure what's their position.
We spoke a minute ago about how the AFC vote in the National Assembly.
I think they withdrew. Hold on, let me
finish. On this, so it's, that issue, the spending bill, the supplementary appropriation number 4 of 2011, the AFC, by its abstention, allowed the passage of the bill. Was that politics or principle? Oh,
well, the real future of this 10th Parliament now, and whether we'll have new elections and early elections has a lot to do with the AFC, and whether they will abstain, support the government or support the APNU on these issues. If AFC takes the position to abstain, which they did, and they continue to do that, in essence, the government would be able to get its legislation passed and its budget and so on. If, on the other hand, they will join with the APNU and oppose those things, the government will not be able to get the legislation and the budget passed. So a lot of it has to do with what the AFC decides to do.
No, I'm asking you your opinion. Whether you think it was politics or principle?
I think that no, my opinion is not a question of whether it's politics or principle. I think it has to do that from time to time.
Well, let us look at the essence of it, Mr. Gaskin. You know what the supplementary appropriation, well, it was $5.7 billion. 2.4, Dr. Ashley Singh decided to draw out of the contingencies fund without any approval. Then 3.2 was more book entry type of transactions, but it was badly dealt with. Section 24 of the Fiscal Management and Accountability Act was not complied with. All these things are known, and this is why I put it in the context of whether it was one of principle.
I think the AFC wanted it to go through. They didn't want to oppose it with the APNU, and therefore they decided to abstain and let it go through on this particular one.
What's your assessment of the reason for that?
Oh, I don't know. I think on a previous program we had spoken here about hand washing hand, making hand come clean. I don't know what deals these politicians are making. I think it's quite possible for politicians to make deals to get things done. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some backroom deals in the works. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I wouldn't be surprised. But we'll have to see whether AFC, the relationship between AFC and APNU, I do believe it is damaged over the Moses Nagamutu speakership row. I really do believe it was mortally wounded as a result of that thing, where Trotman was able to come in later and get the speakership. And this might be playing out. It might be playing out. The AFC is not happy over the Nagamutu treatment. So this could all be part and parcel of that.
And they put that, they attribute that blame to the APNU.
Yes.
And therefore would support.
But abstain.
This is why I was asking.
They're not supporting they're not supporting. Indirectly, it ends up supporting the government because the government gets this thing, the effect of it. But the AFC would abstain on somebody on it. But we'll see. We'll have to see what happens on the next couple of occasions.
Well, partly the next couple of occasions is confronting us.
Oh yeah.
You have to have a budget within 90 days of the year on the outside.
April,
Now, clearly that is bad budgeting. You should budget in advance, not quarter year into the. What do you think of these exchanges, Mr. Gaskin, between and among the APNU, the AFC, and the PPP, and Dr. Ashley Singh, about consultations on the budget?
Well, I read your letter. You're of the view that consultations should have taken place with civil society 149. There was to be some consultation, and I think at the end Greenwich backed out of it at the last minute. I think he said he wouldn't attend. The ruling party has been on the offensive against Greenwich, I gather from the press, dredging up a whole set of issues from 92. About his presentation of the budget, the audit reports for 11 years.
But he's being targeted.
Yes, and I think it rattled him enough, and he withdrew from the meeting. So the government has been on the offensive with Greenwich, and they've rattled him a lot.
Why do you think he's being targeted?
Because of the whole lineup of persons who are supposed to be challenging the finance minister. He appears to be the person more knowledgeable in these issues who can do a better job, I think. And they would like to challenge. They would like to take him down early if they can.
You said just now, you referred to a letter
that you had written about the 149.
Are you in agreement with that letter? with the sentiments that,
well, I read it. The
you got your
Constitution says that the Constitution does require consultation. And I don't think the consultations have been held. Although the minister did say at one time that they hold consultations all the time with civic society and blah blah blah.
He said the competitiveness
council.
But that is not true. That doesn't constitute the whole of Guyana, does it?
No, it doesn't. And I don't know if consultations with civil society would have changed anything.
But that's not the point.
The Constitution requires it. It hasn't been done. It hasn't been done.
There is no consultation.
But I still believe, as somebody who worked in the budget office many years, I still believe that the preparation of the budget, the preparation and presentation of the budget is essentially the work of the executive. They have to present it, prepare it and present it.
No one disputes that. Article 218 specifically says the budget shall be prepared and presented to the National Assembly. Let me finish, please. By the Minister of Finance. No one is questioning that. The issue is whether under 149C he must have consultations, whether he can properly deprive people of the right to participate in that decision-making process.
What the groups he would have consulted with, the TUC, the FITUG, the Private Sector Commission, and...
Well, there are lots of stakeholders in the country.
I don't know. The budget is brought to the National Assembly, and that is the place to bring it, and everybody gets a chance to
not everybody. Parliament gets a chance to deal with it.
Well,
I am talking about the consultation.
All the other people who want to be involved in consultations for the budget, I'm not sure about many of them.
So what, you're discounting them? Are you depriving them of that?
The civil society?
Yes.
The Private Sector Commission?
So, well, the Constitution, you read the Constitution, you know it.
Yeah.
Socio-economic groups, etc. That's what it says.
The Private Sector Commission, the trade unions and so on.
And so on what? No, I don't understand you. And so on what?
I'm saying to you, if the consultations were held, which they ought to have been, I'm not sure it would have brought about any changes.
One of the questions people pose, when are we going to have elections? They are thinking that a lot of the grandstanding that is taking place among our political players is setting the stage for national elections.
I think all the parties know this. All the parties know that it is possible, that this thing could happen soon. In my opinion, right now, a lot of it rides on the position and decision of the AFC, whether we go early or we go late or we don't go at all. If the AFC decides that we ain't going to know new elections soon, there ain't going to be no new elections, because you need the support of the entire opposition on the 106 to make that happen early.
Well, not quite correct.
Although the president himself
can
dissolve the House and go early. I'm not sure if they're in a mood to go early either, although they know too that of this possibility.
So your view is that none of the three parliamentary players is in a mood for fresh elections?
At this stage, early, right now. No.
What do you think about the people? And what would be their attitude, which would probably influence the decision?
Well, I don't know. The people, I think what you really need now is not new national elections, is local government elections. We need to have local government elections now.
With this kind of municipal legislation we got?
No,
without a local government commission?
There's separate issues. If you have to resolve all those issues before you have these local government elections, you're never going to have local government elections. You have to have local government elections. It's been 18 years now. We need to have those before a new set of national elections. I think you have to have them. And still continue dealing with reform of the system and reform of 2801 and 02 and so on. You have to have them. You're never going to have them if you want to resolve all these problems before having them.
You have them in a situation where a local government has an elected set of people have no powers because they're superimposed over by a political directorate.
This is what has been happening for the last 18 years.
So you want to continue that? So you want to continue that?
No, I want to see local government elections held.
No, under the same framework.
I want to see local government elections held.
Okay.
Yes.
The elections we talk about, you know we are yet to get a clear statement from the APNU on the statements of poll. You remember we had all this discussion about whether persons were cheated, whether young people's votes were counted, etc. Where, as far as you're aware, is that matter? The status of these statements of poll and statement by the APNU?
The last time I heard about it is there's a promise that this report will be presented to the public. That's about a week or two ago. I think Harmon said that, and I think Mr. Granger said it, that the report will be submitted to the public, the report of their inquiry into the statements of poll, but I haven't seen any report.
Are you in favor of a reform of GCOM?
I think GCOM is due for reform. It's been put in place since the Carter days and the Carter formula and all that. And it's, I think it's due for reform. I think they are starting with term limits. You know, I think Suraj Bali has really outlived his usefulness there. And but you mean there's difficult. That might be even more difficult to get at now, especially if you have to take it to Parliament. You might be able to get it. You have to have a consensus of all the parties to get that done. That might be difficult now. The relationships.
What you mean under the Constitution?
Under the present dispensation in the National Assembly, you may not be able to get changes done now much to what you have there.
No, but because you need to change the Constitution.
You need to change the Constitution. You don't get it now. The relationship between the parties in Parliament, I don't see they're conducive to any harmonious working together there. I don't see it at all. Maybe except on a mile, they will all agree if they have their own separate interests.
We talked about the AFC abstaining on the vote on Bill number 1 of 2020, the supplementary appropriation. What was your view, and what remains your view, if any, on that bill? Did Ashley Singh get an easy passage there?
I think so. I think Ashley Singh has done a poor job there. This is the fourth time he's come to Parliament for supplementary money, I think. And I think he's done a bad job. I think maybe they need a new finance minister, really. Keeps coming all, you have this budget and he doesn't get his numbers right, and he keeps coming all the time. And they should look at that, I think. But he did get an easy ride there.
He did not even get a censure.
No. I would not be surprised if these things are dealt with before in backroom meetings. I don't have any information about it, but knowing how politics works here, it's quite possible that these things could be arranged beforehand.
You're demonstrating a lot of cynicism about politicians. Is that based on your experiences with the PPP and other political groups in Ghana?
I don't think it's difficult for the government side to talk to Kemraj and Moses. I don't think it's difficult. It might be more difficult for them to talk to Greenidge and Granger, but I don't think it's very difficult for them to talk to Moses and Kemraj. I don't think so. They've been friends for a long time. They might have different views now, but it's easy for them to talk to these gentlemen, I think. They probably do.
We have a situation where Dr. Ashni Singh went to the National Assembly twice in September. Supplementary appropriations 2, supplementary appropriation 3. He knew elections were coming, he knew a whole set of things. He chose not to go to the National Assembly to draw out money, but to use his own discretion and authority. Doesn't that undermine the autonomy and authority of the National Assembly?
Well, I think the Constitution really gives the power over finances to the National Assembly. The power to approve the spending. They alone could approve the spending of money in this country in the budget. You have to bring it there for approval. They're the only people who can approve it, the National Assembly. That's the Constitution. And I think the minister really did believe at the time he was spending all this money that he would get it rubber stamped in the new Parliament. It didn't happen. so he has this
You mean the
problem now.
PPP would have got a majority
Yes,
and it would have been...
I think he was operating on that assumption. It didn't happen. But the way the Constitution is set out, the Parliament, the National Assembly does have the authority when it comes to approving spending of money.
Well, there's another interesting dimension, which Dr. Singh referred to, I think, on charted waters,
Yes, he did.
where Dr. Singh has spent money, Parliament has refused to approve it. So what happens to that money? It's gone. How do you...
Well, the money has been spent. Well, they brought the bill there, and 4 items were not
Yes.
approved, and the rest were approved. And it's, well, he said there's no time limit on approval, and you could resubmit. I think the Speaker ruled that you could resubmit on those 4 items. Isn't there a ruling like that? I think so.
Well...
And you could resubmit on those that you didn't get approved, bring it back again.
So, and you don't get approval at the next time, what happens?
Well, maybe you'll get approval in the next time if you do your homework and you talk.
You know, the important thing that everybody seems to have ignored in this place, and quite frankly, sometimes I get fed up with the kind of parliamentarians we have. You are supposed, this is such a limited type of expenditure. You're supposed to bring it at the next sitting of the National Assembly. How can the Speaker say, oh, there's no time limit?
And the minister said there was no time limit.
Mr. Gaskin, that is not correct.
That's
you
what
must
he
bring
said.
it to the next sitting of the National Assembly.
It did not come, and when it did come, eventually, the government did not have the majority, and you had a problem. 4 items were not allowed.
So the money has been spent without authority,
And
and
these 4 items that...
the Minister of Finance is saying, I have unlimited time, is supported by the Speaker of the National Assembly, I'll bring it back at some other time.
Well, he'll bring it back, he had to rework it, talk to the people, see if he could convince them, and then bring it back. I think that's what they're working on.
That sounds to me like financial anarchy. We'll now take an ad break.
I let it fall, my heart, and as it fell, you rose to claim it. It was dark, and I was over, until you kissed my lips, and you saved me. My hands, they were strong, but my knees were...
Welcome back to Plain Talk with Mr. Raymond Gaskin. Mr. Gaskin, in the Parliament, Friday, Mr. Anil Nandalal, our Attorney General, bringing an action ostensibly in the name of the state, challenging the Parliament.
In the Parliament or the High Court?
He brought it in the court, challenging the Parliament's decision
on the committees.
on the committees. What's your position? What's your view on this?
What's my position? I see all the big lawyers have been ruled out here to fight it, to do this is big law here. Rex McKay, Chase, and Roysdale Ford, and Ramjatan, the whole works. You're involved in any of this thing. All the big legal minds have been brought out here. All the big heavy artillery.
I'm asking you your view now.
When I see this artillery, I'm reminding of the Red Army artillery. These are the biggest guns. Nigel, use everybody to argue big law. My view, as someone who has read this Constitution a couple times already, is that I don't see in it, I don't see any article in this Constitution that allows the court to make a determination on those issues. I think those are in-house parliamentary issues about committees and so on. But we'll have to listen to the legal arguments and hear what the Chief Justice has to say. But from the little I've read of the Constitution, I do not see how it can succeed. But you never know what the Chief Justice might rule.
What does it say about the political culture? I think Ms. Gail Teixeira, who I like to refer to as the governance czar, said...
Zarina. If it's a female, it has to be a Zarina.
Thank you for the Russian... yes, thank you, Raymond. Describing it as a dictatorship of one.
Is that right?
That's how she described it.
What? The parliament is a dictatorship of one?
Because they have one seat more. The opposition has one seat more. It's now trying to control Parliament.
She shouldn't say that, because she should be the last to say that, because the AFC people are abstained and they get the thing through Parliament. So I don't see where the dictatorship of one.
But you know, politicians seem to have a conveniently bad memory or conveniently good memory from time to time. when they had very little, when they had to just, I think at one time they only had 52% in the National Assembly, 51 point something, they certainly behaved as though that was 100%, was it?
I don't think you'd hear more of Gail Teixeira on this. She's the lead person on these issues. Gail Teixeira and some other.
But isn't she supposed to be the person for governance? Who's supposed to be talking about orderly management and so on? Is it a misnomer to call her a governance presidential advisor on governance?
Well, maybe at New Garden Street she advises on that, but in the National Assembly she deals with this problem that they're having there, which she's not accustomed to. Don't forget, Gail has been in there since 1992. And then she's always been in the majority, and now, come 20 years later, now you don't have this automatic majority. So she has a problem. But from what I'm seeing, from what I'm seeing, these politicians have a way of making arrangements to get it done. From what I'm seeing, I'll continue to keep an eye on things.
In fact, one of the requests, I think part of the whole program and policy that drives the action was to stem the work of the National Assembly. Do you see that happening? Cameron Ramzan certainly said no way.
Well, I see today's papers, the Speaker ruled that the work of the Parliament and the work of setting up committees will go ahead, notwithstanding this challenge in the court. I think the Prime Minister was trying to get the Speaker to agree to put a hold on that until the court would have ruled on that. But I think the Speaker did not agree with that, and the work of the committees will go ahead. So,
isn't the Speaker of the National Assembly, or Mr. Raphael Trotman, one of the defendants in this matter?
Yeah, he's the defendant.
So how could he decide? I mean, surely it shows you the absurdity.
Yes.
Of having a leader of the list as Speaker of the National
Well,
Assembly.
he said that he is a trained lawyer too, and he said in the absence of any order restraining him from doing what he has to do, he will do what he has to do. That's what he said. He said there's nothing to restrain him, and he'll continue.
No, but I'm making the point that he's a defendant in this matter.
Yeah.
So he is making the decision.
No, it came to him to make the decision because the Prime Minister requested of him
by way of a letter.
Yes, to hold up this thing. And he said he couldn't do it because there's nothing restraining him, and he just go ahead and do his work. I guess when they filed the application, they didn't get an order restraining him, so he just goes ahead. You know the system. In the absence of an order, you can do what you want to do until you're restrained.
You think that was a mistake, a tactical mistake on the part of the Attorney General? Not to seek an order?
I don't know if the Chief Justice would have granted an order.
No, but you think it was worth a try?
Well, those guys would try anything. I don't know if the Chief Justice would grant an order delaying the work of the Parliament. I doubt it. I don't even know if he has the authority to do that in this Constitution.
So by the same token, he probably doesn't have authority to make...
I don't know. I don't know if any judge could stop the work of the National Assembly. I don't know. But then you never know. Because he did a ruling the other day against on the matter of Henry Green, which many people found strange. So you never know what comes out of there. You never know.
The other issue that we've had some kind of publicity on is stemmed to some extent from, or it was related to the spending bill, the Auditor General's report for 2010. You're aware the report came out since September last year.
September 30th is dated, which is the statutory date.
But a tight lid was kept in it.
Well, September 30th, I don't know when the National Assembly was prorogued for the November election.
Well, because I think what happened, you had to keep Parliament in place. So the Parliament was not dissolved. For the presentation to be made. But it was then immediately dissolved, so it could not be laid.
It could not be laid yet, yes. But it was presented.
Did you see a strategy in that?
I would say so, yes. But at least the Auditor General could say that I presented my report to the Speaker by the due date, 30 September. What happens after that, I have no control over. But he could say that I presented my report and I done with that.
Would you, in the spirit of good and accountable governance, say that since Parliament had not yet been dissolved, let us have a special session just to table this? Let the people know how their money has been spent and what our Auditor General tells us.
At the time, I guess they didn't consider it. I've looked at the Auditor General report, the same report you're talking about. It's getting...
All right. Hope I don't bust nothing up here. Okay, this is going to let it come down? Work this forward.
In particular, the problem of submission of reports of the municipalities, which is something I have an interest in now. And it's just one page. The problem he has with all the municipalities, Linden and New Amsterdam and Georgetown, all of that big problem, from since 1988 or it is, all of that problem.
What is 1982, yes.
Yeah, yes. In one page. And he just listed them, New Amsterdam, Linden, this, Georgetown, what have you. I didn't get a report from 1989 to that, and he done with that in one day. I didn't find it particularly helpful.
He fails to review ever the office of the president, the actual, rather than the entities within office of the president, like the presidential guard and so on. He has not been doing that either.
Well, I don't know if I've always held the view that the Auditor General of Guyana ought to be a professionally trained chartered accountant.
Well, he has to be.
But he's not.
He's not.
He ought to be. And we need really to strengthen that office and put in place professionally trained chartered accountants. That would be my opinion.
His work is kind of overseen or supervised because it's Parliament, in fact, that he reports to. By what is called a Public Accounts Committee, which is chaired by the opposition. Do you think the opposition has done enough on the Public Accounts Committee to expose all these omissions by the Auditor General?
When you read the Auditor General's report about what he thinks goes on in this country, and you compare it with what we know that goes on in this country, it's chalk the cheese.
He's talking about a different country?
Yeah, he's talking about something else. He's not really reporting on what goes on in this place. We're talking about corruption. For example, there's corruption widespread all over the place. I mean, everybody knows this. Everybody knows this. I think even the government says that. And they're trying to deal with it and all that. But the Auditor General does not report on it. He does not report on it. On these corrupt practices throughout the system. This whole problem about the 90 million thing in the police force. There was a check submitted, presented to Parliament,
yes.
And I read the check. I read this check.
Mr. Ramnarine?
This check to Ramnarine is written on the Forces Welfare Fund account.
Yes.
This is an internal thing.
Yes.
This is the Force account, the Force Welfare Fund.
Keep them boys happy, keep the boys and girls happy.
So what I'm thinking happened is the 90 million went to the Force. And it went into this so-called welfare fund. And out of that, they've been doling out some of it, some for you and some for, and the rest that presumably is left back is for VDs. We think so. This is a welfare fund check. This is not Government of Guyana check. This is not a central government check or a Bank of Guyana check that we paid the commander for E&F division so much money to do something that which when added up with all the commanders will come up to this 90 million. No. This is an internal check. He got a check from some welfare fund. It's an internal thing.
But how come he does not see these things?
Who? He who?
The Auditor General.
Well, I know a year he can report on that, but it's published in the newspaper on the front page.
Well, he made a statement that he may consider looking into this matter.
Yeah, but I think the Commissioner of Police should tell us, did you get the 90 million? And when you got the 90 million from the ministry or from the finance ministry, treasury, where did you put it? You know, when I left high school, I started auditing.
I know that, and you told me.
But I see this thing right away.
Routely in character. But Raymond, there is a way that you do this. You have to do it by way of a warrant.
Well,
and it can't be issued to some fund?
I've been told, I don't think if the minister issued it to a fund. I think they gave them the full amount, and they share out the money among themselves. I don't think the Minister of Finance gave Ramnarine 300,000. I don't think so. He gave them the full amount, and they put it in the welfare fund. Then they start to draw from it, to share out this money among themselves. That's what happened there. The Minister of Finance doesn't have the welfare fund checkbook. The check is written on a welfare fund.
That points to some serious corruption
in
the police force.
Yeah. But the Minister of Home Affairs didn't know that when he was presenting this check. They must have gone and told the Minister, here's the check. He didn't look to see this is a welfare fund check. This is not Government of Guyana check. They didn't see it, but I saw it. I think you'll have seen it. You're in the business for a long time.
Yeah, that's an incredibly badly written check as well.
I think they got the 90 million. I really do believe they got the 90 million. Many years ago.
Who is this they?
The police force. The police force got it.
So you believe that entire $2.4 billion was properly accounted for?
No, never properly accounted for as a separate issue. I think they did get the money. And many years ago, a government minister told me that when it comes to the police force and the army, nobody can question them when it comes to financial spending. Those two agencies don't worry with anybody. The police and the army.
Well, housing, you mentioned someone, all the local government agencies.
Yeah.
One page. Ministry of Housing in the 2010 annual report of the Auditor General simply referred to failure to table accounts of Guyana Water Inc. and the Central Housing and Planning. Does the Auditor General
He doesn't get it. Guyana Water Inc. is a private company.
Yes.
It
has to be tabled. The point I'm making, none of the expenditure.
They got a table there. It got a file under the Companies Act of 91. They got a file all over the place. So to come and tell me they have a file, you really ain't doing nothing. I don't know who the auditor is for GWI.
No, but the point I'm making, there was no reporting of the transactions of the Ministry of Housing and Water.
I don't think there's any proper audit.
Do you believe we need a ministry for water?
No, we don't need a ministry for water because we have a water company. Like how we have the GPL. We don't need a ministry for electricity because GPL does that. And that's owned by the government exclusively. You don't need a ministry for sugar because Gaisuko does that. You don't need a ministry for water because Guyana Water Inc. does that. You don't need a ministry for housing either because Central Housing and Planning Authority, which is set up by Act of Parliament, does that. You don't need that. You don't. You can close them down and nobody would notice it. You may not even need a ministry for sport because you have the National Sports Council set up by law. And as for culture, I don't know what to call it, culture, all this mash culture.
Do you think the structure and the arrangement and management of the finances in fact encourage accountability or facilitate the kind of lawlessness that seems to be so evident?
I was thinking about that. I'm glad you mentioned it because somebody raised with me the whole question of putting in new systems at City Hall because Burroughs has recommended new systems to be put in place. It is my considered opinion that if you have a system or an organization with a lot of corruption in there, no amount of new rules will change that. It's not going to happen. The Guyana Police Force is a place with a lot of systems and rules and manuals and so on. But because of the corruption that is there from top to bottom, you never get anything done. So this is the problem, I would say, in the system. There's too much corruption all over the place from top to bottom, and therefore the systems don't work. And even if you try to put in new systems, they still wouldn't work because there's too much. You have to weed out. You have to weed out the corrupt people. Then you can put in brand new systems and brand new people and get things moving.
One of the problems with putting in systems and people, I was speaking to a certain head of budget agency a couple of days ago, and she said to me, you know, we don't make the decisions in this place. And I said, but you are the accounting officer. Now, who gets the rap when things go wrong?
Oh, well, that cop-out, that's a regular public service cop-out. We don't make the decisions here and so on. They're operating like junior clerks.
But they're going to be fired if they don't follow instructions, aren't they?
They're going to, I guess if they don't follow instructions, they will be fired. But they're quite happy with the situation. I haven't heard of any of them resigning. They're quite happy with it. They're quite happy with the system that they're working in.
Have they become so enmeshed and embroiled and interwoven into the system that they really have no option but to stay?
To stay in it and to continue just what they're doing.
Because at what point do they say, well, I'm not taking any more?
No, they're quite hard. Many of them go to work to steal. They go to work to steal, to see how much they can steal in that given day.
Not heads of budget agency, you know.
Not heads of budget. A lot of people go to work to steal. You can still buy a driver's license at Brickdam for $40,000. I don't care what they say. It's being sold at Brickdam. I spoke to the man himself who sells the thing. They go to work to steal, many of them.
You think...
And then they complain and say, you know, we don't make decisions here. That's what they say. We don't make decisions here.
You think President Ramatar is aware of all of this?
Knows that a driver's license are being sold at Brickdam?
No, not just one. Not actually, about all this corruption that is taking place.
I think the president knows some complaints that are being brought to him from time to time at the leadership at the party level and at from Guy Suko's director and from OP and all. He knows there's a lot of corruption.
Do you think Dr. Ashley
Somebody
Singh knows
know about it? The question is whether you can do what you can do about it.
Why would Dr. Ashley Singh, who is responsible constitutionally and under the Fiscal Management and Accountability Act for the finances of the state, be giving more money to these corrupt entities and institutions controlled by persons who are themselves not above board?
So that you can control them. You have a better control of these corrupt people and these corrupt managers and corrupt officers and corrupt heads of things, because you have the goods in them, and you get to control them better. I think so. There's that political calculation there. The government doesn't know what the police force does. Of course, they know what the police force does. Of course,
and who is the...
They know what's happening with this fuel smuggling, who facilitates fuel smuggling in this country. The big agencies, they know what customs doing, they know a lot of things.
And fuel vessels have to pay a certain toll
to the Coast Guard. They know that, but they say, well, you know, that's the price we have to pay. They calculate it, and then we control these guys a little better because we have the goods on them. We have the goods on a lot of them.
The report of the Auditor General now goes to the Public Accounts Committee. It appears that the chairman designate of that committee is Carl Greenwich. How do you see that report getting the kind of easy passage it did under, say, Vola Lawrence when she was chairperson?
No. But he'll probably get a rougher ride from the people he's trying to interview and subpoena there on the report than she did. If he gets aggressive with them, they'll get aggressive with him. I find the government is on the offensive now, not the opposition. The government is more on the offensive than the opposition is, especially with this court case and so on. The government is on the offensive.
No, but here it is. There are certain rules. The Standing Committee, the Fiscal Management and Accountability Act, the Constitution. Surely the Public Accounts Committee is looked to by the taxpayers of this country to ensure that the Auditor General does his work of seeing that money is properly accounted for.
I don't know. Do
you think people care?
No, the average man in the street is happy to know,
or woman,
that there's an Auditor General. He checks the books. He writes his big report and he submits it. They're happy to know that there is somebody and it's being done. It's been done for the last number of years. In the past it wasn't done, it's being done. They're happy with that.
So would you think that people like you, me, and others who really find this so unacceptable as to get angry are wasting our time?
You're not wasting your time, but you're not wasting your time. You will get angry, but the ordinary man in the street who's struggling every day with cost of living and joblessness and housing and all, he really can't put more time into that now. But you have a lot of more time to do it than I have. But the ordinary people can't really handle these technical issues so much now. You have the strike at the end with the packaging plant. You have strikes in the sugar industry. You have the light bill coming up, the increase in the light bill. A lot of ordinary people in this country have a lot of more things to worry about that are more critical than the Public Accounts Committee.
We got 60 seconds. Do you see confrontation coming up as the Public Accounts Committee moves to review the 2010 Auditor General Report?
I can see that if Mr. Greenidge is in charge of that process, he will take a stronger and firmer position. He's more knowledgeable than those that have been before him, and those who appear before him might get a rougher ride than they had in the past. That's what I see.
Mr. Raymond Gaskin, thank you very much for appearing on Plain Talk. Viewers, thank you. Good night. See you next week. I have had the word from the President, Donald Ramatar, that he will be appearing on Plain Talk. I'll try to arrange this for next week. Until then, see you.
I let it fall, my heart, and as it fell, you rose to claim it. It was dark, and I was over, until you kissed my lips, and you saved me. My hands still strong, but my knees were...
Now you can get all the latest products you want, electronics, fashion, furniture, from anywhere in the world with internet shopping at Aeropost through World Mall Guyana. You'll need to register with Aeropost and have a credit or debit card account. If you don't have one, come into our office and use ours for just 10% of the product cost. Call 223-3061. Select your products. Pay for them via credit card. We'll ship to Guyana and handle customs brokerage. We can also deliver if you so desire, or you can come into our office and collect. www.aeropost.com. Aeropost. Enjoy the thrill of internet shopping.